The morning sun peeked through the blinds of Melody's diner, casting golden stripes across the worn, checkered floor. Lily Chen tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear as she tied her apron around her waist. She'd been working at this small-town diner for 3 years now, and the routine had become as familiar as breathing. At 26, she wasn't where she had imagined herself to be at this point in her life, but there was something comforting about the predictability of her days. "Morning, Lily," called out Joe, the short-order cook who'd been at Melody's longer than anyone could remember. His mustache twitched when he smiled, which was almost always. "Ready for another exciting Tuesday?" Lily laughed, grabbing her notepad and tucking a pencil behind her ear. "As ready as I'll ever be. Any specials today?" "Blueberry pancakes with that homemade syrup everyone loves," Joe replied, already flipping eggs on the sizzling grill. "And don't forget Mr. Henderson will be in at exactly 7:30 for his coffee, black with 1 sugar, and his scrambled eggs with extra toast." "When have I ever forgotten?" Lily teased, filling the coffee pots and checking that the sugar dispensers were full. This was her life now, remembering how dozens of regulars liked their eggs, which tables preferred extra napkins, and who would leave a decent tip regardless of service. The bell above the door jingled as the first customers of the day walked in. The Rogers family, Mom, Dad, and their 2 kids who always ordered chocolate chip pancakes regardless of the time of day. Lily greeted them with a warm smile that reached her eyes because despite everything, she genuinely liked most of the people who came through those doors. "Your usual table is all set," she said, leading them to the booth by the window with the view of the town square. The little girl, no more than 7, skipped alongside Lily. "Miss Lily, I learned a new song on my toy piano yesterday," the child announced proudly. Something flickered across Lily's face. A shadow of memory, there and gone so quickly that no one would notice unless they were looking for it. "That's wonderful, Annie. Maybe you can play it for me sometime." As the morning rush picked up, Lily moved between tables with practiced efficiency. She knew exactly how to balance 5 plates along her arm, could refill coffee without spilling a drop, while jotting down another order, and had mastered the art of making every customer feel like they were her only priority. It was a dance she performed daily, and she was good at it. By 11, the breakfast crowd had thinned out, giving Lily a moment to catch her breath. She leaned against the counter, sipping water and chatting with Nancy, the other waitress who worked the morning shift. "My feet are killing me already," Nancy complained good-naturedly. At 52, she'd been waiting tables for over 30 years and claimed the aches were just part of the job. "How are you holding up, honey?" "I'm fine," Lily replied automatically. It was her standard answer, regardless of how she actually felt. "Just thinking about what movie I might watch tonight. All alone again." "Pretty girl like you should be out having fun," Nancy said, not for the first time. "My nephew's still single, you know. Works over at the bank." "Good job, nice car." Lily smiled politely. "Maybe someday. Just not feeling the dating scene right now." The truth was, Lily hadn't felt much of anything for a long time. She went through her days on autopilot. Work, home, sleep, repeat. Occasionally she'd read a book or call her mom who lived 3 states away. Her apartment above the hardware store was sparsely furnished, as if she hadn't fully committed to staying. 3 years in this town, and she still used the moving boxes as makeshift bookshelves. Mr. Peterson, the diner's owner, emerged from his tiny office at the back. A balding man with kind eyes and a perpetual look of mild confusion, he was more of a friendly uncle figure than a boss. "Busy morning?" he asked, though he could see the answer in the stack of tickets by the register. "The usual," Lily replied, already wiping down tables in preparation for the lunch crowd. "Oh, and we're running low on that strawberry jam everyone likes." "Already ordered more," Mr. Peterson said proudly, as if remembering to restock supplies was a major achievement. "Say, Lily, would you mind staying an extra hour today?" Darlene called in sick again. Lily nodded. Extra hours meant extra money, and though she lived frugally, her savings weren't growing as quickly as she'd hoped. "No problem. Everything okay with Darlene?" "Kid's got the flu, I think. 3rd time this month that family's been sick." Mr. Peterson shook his head sympathetically. "You're a lifesaver, Lily. Don't know what this place would do without you." The compliment should have felt good, but instead, it settled like a weight. Being indispensable at a small-town diner wasn't exactly what she'd dreamed of as a child. There had been a time when Lily had different plans, bigger dreams. But life had a way of rerouting journeys, and here she was, serving meatloaf specials and refilling coffee cups. The lunch rush brought in the usual crowd, office workers from the few businesses downtown, retirees who came as much for the conversation as the food, and the occasional traveler passing through on their way to somewhere more interesting. Lily moved through it all with practiced ease, her customer service smile firmly in place. "Hey, did you hear about the music festival coming to Capital City next month?" asked Tom, a regular who worked at the post office. "Supposed to be pretty big. Even got some classical performers coming." Lily's hand paused almost imperceptibly as she poured his coffee. "Is that right? Sounds nice. Yeah, my daughter's all excited. She's taking piano lessons now, wants to be the next. What's her name? That famous pianist who plays all those complicated pieces? There are quite a few," Lily said vaguely, already moving to the next table. The afternoon lulled into that quiet period between lunch and dinner. Lily took the opportunity to restock napkins, fill salt and pepper shakers, and wipe down menus. These mindless tasks were almost meditative, allowing her thoughts to drift. Her fingers moved mechanically, folding napkins into neat triangles, long fingers. Piano fingers, her teacher had once called them. Lily glanced down at them now, still slender, but the nails were cut short for practical reasons, and there were small calluses and tiny burns from hot plates. Working hands now, not a musician's. The bell above the door jingled again, snapping Lily from her thoughts. A delivery truck had pulled up outside, and two men in uniforms were entering the diner. They looked around, clearly searching for someone in charge. "Can I help you?" Lily asked, approaching them with her professional smile. "Got a delivery for this address," the taller man said, consulting his clipboard. "Melody's Diner, 4 and 12 Main Street?" Lily frowned slightly. "That's us, but we're not expecting any deliveries today. Mr. Peterson," she called toward the back. "There's a delivery here." Mr. Peterson emerged, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "Delivery? I didn't order anything except those jam jars, and they're not due until Friday." The delivery men looked at each other, then back at their paperwork. "Well, we've got a piano here addressed to this location. Someone signed for it last week. Mr. Peterson? A piano?" Mr. Peterson's eyebrows shot up nearly to where his hairline used to be. "I never ordered a piano." Lily stood frozen, staring at the men as if they'd announced they were delivering an alien spacecraft. A piano. Here. The very thought made her heart beat faster in a way it hadn't in years. The confusion was eventually sorted out. The piano was actually meant for the music school 2 blocks down, which had recently opened in a building with a similar address. But there was a problem. The music school wasn't prepared to receive it today, and the delivery men couldn't take it back to the warehouse. "Look," said the frustrated delivery man, "we've got 5 more stops today. This thing can stay here for a couple days until the music school sorts out their space, or we can leave it on the sidewalk. Your choice." Mr. Peterson, ever accommodating, sighed and looked around the diner. "I suppose we could put it in that corner for now. Might add a bit of class to the place, right, Lily?" "Lily?" But Lily had stepped outside to look at the piano being unloaded from the truck. It was a beautiful upright, its mahogany surface gleaming even under the cloudy sky. Not a concert grand by any means, but a respectable instrument. Her fingers twitched involuntarily at her sides. "You okay, honey?" Nancy asked, appearing beside her. "You look like you've seen a ghost," in a way she had. The ghost of a different life, a different Lily. One who wore concert black instead of a polyester uniform, who received applause instead of tips. "I'm fine," Lily said, her standard response. "Just surprised, that's all." The men wheeled the piano in on a dolly, carefully navigating through the tables to the empty corner near the back. They positioned it against the wall, removed the protective blankets, and had Mr. Peterson sign for the temporary placement. And just like that, a piano was sitting in Melody's Diner, as out of place as a penguin in the desert. Throughout the afternoon, customers commented on the new addition. Some joked about dinner and a show. Others reminisced about their own brief encounters with music lessons as children. All the while, Lily worked, trying not to look at the instrument that seemed to be watching her, waiting. "You play, Lily?" Mr. Peterson asked casually as she passed by with a tray of dirty dishes. "No," she lied, perhaps the first direct lie she'd told since coming to town. "Never learned?" As the day wore on, the piano sat silent in its corner. But for Lily, it was the loudest thing in the room. The next morning, Lily arrived at Melody's diner earlier than usual. She hadn't slept well, her dreams filled with music and memories she'd tried hard to forget. Her feet had carried her to work almost automatically, and now she stood in the empty diner, staring at the piano in the corner. In the quiet of the early morning, with no one around to see, she approached it slowly. The diner seemed to hold its breath as her fingers hovered over the polished wood, not quite touching. It had been 3 years since she'd allowed herself this close to a piano. 3 years of deliberate avoidance, of walking the long way around music stores, of changing the radio station when certain pieces played. "Didn't expect to see you here so early." Joe's voice came from the kitchen doorway, making Lily jump back from the piano as if caught doing something wrong. "Couldn't sleep," she said, busying herself with setting up the coffee station. "Figured I might as well be productive." Joe nodded, his kind eyes missing nothing but his mouth, asking no questions. That was the thing about this town. People respected boundaries. No one here knew about her past, and that's exactly how Lily wanted it. The morning rush came and went like any other day, but the piano's presence changed the atmosphere of the diner. Customers who'd been coming in for years suddenly had something new to talk about, and theories about why Mr. Peterson had bought a piano ranged from the reasonable, live music nights to boost business, to the absurd, a midlife crisis leading to unfulfilled musical aspirations. "It's just temporary," Lily explained for the dozenth time to Mrs. Winters, a retired teacher who came in every day for tea and toast. It was delivered to the wrong address. "Well, I think it's lovely," Mrs. Winters said, stirring her tea. "My Harold played, you know. Not professionally, but he could sit down and work out any tune by ear. Such a gift." Her eyes misted over with memories of her late husband. "Do you play, dear?" "No," Lily said, the lie coming easier the second time. "Never had the chance to learn." The lunch rush kept her too busy to think about the piano. A tour bus had stopped in town, bringing 30 hungry travelers who all wanted their food at the same time. Lily, Nancy, and the new girl, Priya, moved like dancers around each other, balancing plates and keeping smiles on their faces despite the chaos. It wasn't until mid-afternoon that Lily had a moment to catch her breath. She was wiping down the counter when the bell above the door jingled, and a man walked in with a leather case strapped to his back. "Afternoon," he said cheerfully, glancing around the diner before his eyes landed on the piano. "Ah, there it is. I'm from the music school down the street. Came to check on our wayward piano." Lily felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. "Oh, are you taking it today?" "Not today," the man said, setting his case down and extending his hand. "I'm David, the new music teacher in town. Just wanted to make sure it arrived in one piece. We're still setting up our space, should be ready to take it in a few days." "It seems fine," Lily said, shaking his hand briefly. "No one's touched it." David raised an eyebrow. "Really? Not even curious customers? I'd have thought someone would have plunked out chopsticks by now." Mr. Peterson emerged from the back, greeting David enthusiastically. "The piano man! How's the new school coming along?" "Slowly but surely," David replied. "We've got most of our rental instruments unpacked, just waiting on some final touches before the grand opening next week. Thanks for babysitting our piano. No trouble at all. Adds a bit of sophistication to the place, don't you think?" Mr. Peterson gestured proudly around his humble diner. "Though it's a shame no one here knows how to play it." David unzipped his case, revealing a violin. "Well, maybe I can provide a little entertainment while I'm here. Would that be okay? Might be good advertising for the music school." Mr. Peterson was delighted by the idea, and before Lily could slip away to the kitchen, David had positioned himself beside the piano and begun to play. The sweet, clear notes of the violin filled the diner, causing conversations to pause and heads to turn. He played something light and classical, Vivaldi. Lily recognized instantly, though she pretended not to notice as she took an order from a couple in the corner booth. Her hand shook slightly as she wrote down their selection, the familiar music wrapping around her like an old friend's embrace. When David finished, the sparse afternoon crowd applauded appreciatively. He bowed with a flourish, clearly used to performing. "That was lovely," Nancy said, approaching with a glass of water for him. "We don't get much live music around here." "That's exactly why we're opening the school," David explained, accepting the water gratefully. "Every town needs music. We'll be offering lessons for all ages, instrument rentals, recitals, the works." Lily kept her distance, focusing intently on refilling salt shakers at the far end of the diner. But David's voice carried, and despite herself, she found herself listening to his passionate description of the music program he hoped to build. "The piano's a beauty," he was saying to Mr. Peterson. "Not brand new, but a solid instrument with a warm tone, perfect for students learning proper touch and dynamics." "Sounds like you really know your stuff," Mr. Peterson said admiringly. "What did you do before moving here?" "I was with the National Symphony for a few years, then taught at a conservatory back east. Wanted something different, something more community-focused." David glanced around the diner, his eyes eventually finding Lily. "What about you? Any musical background?" The question was directed at Mr. Peterson, but his gaze remained on Lily as if he sensed something she was trying to hide. She ducked her head, pretending to be busy with her task. "Me? Goodness, no." Mr. Peterson laughed. "Can't carry a tune in a bucket, my wife always said." "What about you, Lily? Ever tickled the ivories?" Put on the spot, Lily looked up to find both men watching her. "I took a few lessons as a kid," she admitted, the partial truth easier than another outright lie. "Nothing serious." David smiled, but there was something knowing in his expression that made Lily uncomfortable, as if he could see right through her carefully constructed facade to the person she used to be. "Well, if anyone here wants to brush up on old skills or learn new ones, the music school will be open to all," he said, packing up his violin. "First lessons free." After he left, the diner seemed unusually quiet, as if the music had emphasized just how silent the place usually was. The piano sat in its corner, somehow more noticeable now after hearing the violin play beside it. The rest of Lily's shift passed uneventfully, but her mind kept drifting to David and his violin, to the music school opening down the street, and to the piano that would soon be leaving the diner. It was better that way, she told herself. Once it was gone, things could go back to normal. That evening, after the dinner rush had ended and Nancy had gone home, Lily volunteered to close up. It was something she did occasionally when Mr. Peterson needed to leave early, and tonight he had a town council meeting to attend. "You're sure you don't mind?" he asked, already putting on his jacket. "I shouldn't be too late." "It's fine," Lily assured him. "It's not like I have big plans waiting for me." Once Mr. Peterson had left, Lily moved through her closing routine. She wiped down tables, swept the floor, counted the register, and prepared the coffee machine for morning. All the while, the piano waited silently in its corner. When everything else was done and the diner was empty, Lily finally allowed herself to approach it. The overhead lights were dimmed for closing, casting a soft glow over the polished wood. She ran her fingers lightly over the fallboard that covered the keys, remembering the feel of smooth ivory beneath her fingertips. Before she could talk herself out of it, she pulled out the bench and sat down. Her heart pounded in her chest as she lifted the cover, revealing the black and white keys that had once been as familiar to her as her own reflection. For a long moment, she just stared at them, afraid to touch, afraid to remember. Then slowly she placed her hands in position and pressed down gently on a C major chord. The sound resonated through the empty diner, clear and true. Tears sprang to her eyes at the simple beauty of it. Her fingers remembered what her mind had tried to forget, moving naturally to the next chord and the next. No particular piece, just the language of music. Her hands still spoke fluently despite the years of silence. A car passed by outside, its headlights briefly illuminating the interior of the diner through the front windows. The spell broken, Lily quickly closed the fallboard and stood up, her heart racing as if she'd been caught doing something forbidden. As she turned off the remaining lights and locked the door behind her, Lily couldn't deny the feeling that had rushed through her when she played those few simple chords. A feeling she hadn't experienced in 3 long years. It had felt like coming. Home the following days passed in a strange dance between Lily and the piano. During her shifts, she would move around it carefully as if it might suddenly call out her name. At quiet moments, she would catch herself staring at it, only to quickly look away when someone noticed. At night, in her small apartment, her fingers would tap out silent melodies on her kitchen table as she drank her tea. Something had awakened inside her, something she had deliberately put to sleep 3 years ago. The brief moment of playing those simple chords had cracked open a door she'd kept firmly shut. "You seem different," Nancy commented as they worked the breakfast shift together. "Got a secret boyfriend or something?" "You're all distracted," Lily laughed, shaking her head. "No boyfriend. Just not sleeping well lately. It's that piano, Joe called from the kitchen window where he was flipping pancakes. It's haunted. Keeps playing by itself at night. Don't even joke about that, Nancy scolded, though her eyes widened slightly. This building is old enough to have ghosts without you making things up. Lily rolled her eyes at their banter, but she couldn't deny that the piano had a presence that seemed to fill the diner. Customers noticed it too. Some asked if they could play, and Mr. Peterson always said yes, resulting in everything from fumbling renditions of Heart and Soul to surprisingly competent performances from unexpected people. Old Mr. Jenkins, who came in every day for lunch and never said more than 10 words, sat down one afternoon and played a beautiful ragtime piece, his gnarled hands moving with surprising agility across the keys. Didn't know you had it in you, Jenkins, Mr. Peterson said admiringly when he finished. The old man shrugged. Used to play in a bar when I was young. Long time ago now. He shuffled back to his usual table as if nothing had happened, leaving everyone staring after him in surprise. That evening, David returned to the diner with his violin, this time accompanied by a petite woman with silver-streaked hair tied back in a neat bun. This is Mrs. Chen, our piano teacher, he introduced her to Mr. Peterson. We wanted to check the tuning before we move it to the school. Mrs. Chen bowed slightly in greeting, then moved directly to the piano without waiting for permission. Her hands moved expertly over the keys, playing scales and chords to test the sound. Lily, taking an order nearby, froze at the familiar exercises, the same ones she had practiced thousands of times. Not bad, Mrs. Chen declared finally. It will need proper tuning once we move it, but it's in good condition. When will that be? Lily asked before she could stop herself. Mrs. Chen turned, noticing her for the first time. By the end of the week, I expect. The renovations are almost complete. David was watching Lily with that same curious expression he'd had before. We're having a small opening celebration on Saturday evening, he said. The whole town is invited. You should come. I'll be working, Lily replied automatically, though she wasn't actually scheduled that night. Well, the invitation stands, David said with a smile. We'll have refreshments, a few short performances from the teachers, information about lessons. Very casual. Mrs. Chen had returned to playing, this time a melodic passage that Lily recognized instantly. Debussy's Clair de Lune, one of the first complex pieces she had mastered. The familiar notes hung in the air like delicate crystals, transforming the humble diner into a concert hall. Customers stopped eating to listen, conversations fading into silence. Even Joe poked his head out from the kitchen, spatula still in hand. When Mrs. Chen finished, the diner erupted in applause. Beautiful, Mr. Peterson said, wiping at his eyes. Just beautiful. Mrs. Chen nodded graciously, closing the fallboard over the keys. Music has the power to transport us, she said simply. That is why we teach. After they left, the diner hummed with excited conversation about the new music school. Several customers expressed interest in signing up for lessons or enrolling their children. Might be good for business, having them just down the street, Mr. Peterson mused to Lily as they prepared for the dinner rush. Bring in new customers. Lily nodded, still hearing the echoes of Clair de Lune in her mind. Her hands had remembered every note, her muscles tensing slightly with the urge to play along. The piece had been part of her final recital at the conservatory, before everything changed. That night, she dreamed of her old life, the practice rooms with their towering windows, the weight of expectation, the rush of performing, the grueling hours of repetition to achieve perfection. She woke up with her heart racing, phantom music still playing in her ears. The next day brought unexpected news. Mr. Peterson gathered the staff before opening to make an announcement. The music school called, he said, looking unusually excited. They've had some kind of water damage from a burst pipe. The repairs will take at least 2 weeks, so they asked if we could keep the piano a bit longer. I said yes, Nancy groaned. That thing takes up prime real estate. We could fit another 4-top table in that space. True, Mr. Peterson acknowledged, but I was thinking we could use it to our advantage. What if we had some live music in the evenings? Nothing fancy, just local people playing while folks eat. Might draw in a different crowd. Joe nodded approvingly. My nephew plays guitar. Nothing special, but he knows all those popular songs kids like. Perfect. Mr. Peterson clapped his hands together. Nancy, doesn't your granddaughter play the flute in the high school band? And I bet we could get David from the music school to spread the word to other musicians. As they all enthusiastically discussed the possibilities, Lily quietly went about her opening duties, her mind racing. 2 more weeks with the piano. 2 more weeks of temptation sitting in the corner, calling to her. The day passed in a blur of customers and coffee refills. News about the piano staying and the possibility of live music spread quickly through the small town. By lunchtime, Mr. Peterson had already lined up 3 different performers for the coming weekend. It'll be just like those fancy city cafes, he told anyone who would listen. Dinner and entertainment! Lily kept her head down and focused on her work, but her thoughts continually drifted to the piano. That evening she found herself volunteering to close again, though it wasn't her turn. You sure? Nancy asked, already untying her apron. You closed just the other night. I don't mind, Lily assured her. I don't have anything better to do. This time, once everyone had left and the diner was clean, Lily approached the piano with deliberate steps. She knew what she was doing, what she was allowing herself to feel. Sitting on the bench felt both foreign and familiar, like returning to a childhood home now occupied by strangers. She placed her hands on the keys, not playing yet, just feeling their cool smoothness beneath her fingertips. Then, taking a deep breath, she began to play. Not exercises this time, not random chords, but music. Real music that flowed from some place deep inside her that had been silent for too long. Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, a piece she had once played so often she could perform it in her sleep. Her fingers stumbled at first, finding their way back to a path once worn smooth by constant use but now grown slightly unfamiliar. But muscle memory is a powerful thing, and soon the music flowed more naturally, filling the empty diner with its haunting beauty. Lily closed her eyes, letting herself be carried away by the familiar rises and falls of the melody. For the first time in 3 years, she allowed herself to remember not just the pain that had driven her away from music, but the joy that had drawn her to it in the first place. So lost was she in the music that she didn't hear the bell above the door, didn't notice she was no longer alone until the final notes faded away and a voice spoke from behind her. I knew it. Lily whirled around on the bench to find David standing just inside the door, a look of quiet triumph on his face. I'm sorry, he said quickly, raising his hands. I left my phone charger here earlier. Mr. Peterson gave me the spare key to get it, said you'd be closing up. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but... He gestured to the piano. That was Chopin. That was professional level Chopin. Lily stood up quickly, her face burning with embarrassment at being caught. It's not what you think. No? David raised an eyebrow. Because I think you're a trained pianist pretending to be someone who's taken a few lessons, that's what I think. Lily turned away, closing the fall board with more force than necessary. It doesn't matter what I used to be. I'm a waitress now. A waitress who plays Chopin like she studied at a conservatory, David said, moving closer. Which one was it? Juilliard, Curtis? Eastman? Lily's head snapped up in surprise and David nodded slowly. I thought so, he said quietly. I'm not trying to expose your secret, you know. I'm just curious. It's not every day you find a world-class pianist working in a small-town diner. I'm not world-class, Lily corrected automatically. I had potential once. That's all. David leaned against a nearby table, studying her with kind eyes. What happened? The question hung in the air between them, so simple yet impossibly complex. What happened? How could she possibly explain the series of events that had led her here, to this diner, to this moment? Lily shook her head. It's late. I need to lock up. David nodded, respecting her boundary. Okay, but you should know the offer to come to our opening is still open. No pressure to play or explain anything, just music. Sometimes it's nice to just listen. After he left, Lily stood in the silent diner for a long time, her reflection visible in the darkened windows. The person staring back at her seemed caught between 2 worlds. The waitress in a simple uniform and the pianist she used to be. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't sure which one was the real Lily anymore. The next morning, Lily seriously considered calling in sick. The thought of facing David after he had discovered her secret made her stomach twist with anxiety. But the diner was short-staffed already, and she wasn't the type to leave others in a lurch. So she arrived at her usual time, tied on her apron, and tried to act normal. If Nancy or Joe noticed anything different about her, They didn't mention it. The breakfast rush kept everyone too busy for conversation anyway, a small mercy for which Lily was grateful. It wasn't until mid-morning that David appeared, violin case strapped to his back as usual. Lily's heart jumped to her throat when she saw him, but he simply smiled and took a seat at the counter. "Just coffee, please," he said when she approached, notepad in hand. Nothing in his manner suggested their encounter the night before, no knowing looks or pointed comments about her playing. Lily poured his coffee, stealing a glance at his face. "Anything else?" "Actually, yes." David pulled a flyer from his pocket and smoothed it on the counter. "Would it be okay to leave a few of these here? For the music school opening." "You'd have to ask Mr. Peterson about that," Lily said, already starting to move away. "I already did. He said it was fine." David's voice was casual, conversational. "He also mentioned you might be interested in attending the piano workshop we're offering. Said you'd taken lessons as a kid." Lily froze. "I told you that was a long time ago." "Right." David nodded, sipping his coffee. "Long time ago. Juilliard, wasn't it?" A nearby customer looked up with interest and Lily lowered her voice. "Please don't do this." "Not here." Something in her expression must have conveyed her distress because David's teasing smile faded. "I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. Your business is your business." Relief washed over her, followed quickly by guilt at her overreaction. "Thank you," she said quietly. "And I'm sorry about last night. You surprised me, that's all." "You surprised me too," David said with a gentle smile, "in the best possible way. But I won't mention it again if that's what you want." Lily nodded gratefully and moved on to her other tables, the weight on her shoulders slightly lighter. True to his word, David finished his coffee without further conversation, leaving the flyers in a neat stack by the register before departing with a simple wave. The rest of the morning passed uneventfully. Lily found herself glancing at the piano occasionally, remembering how it had felt to play Chopin again after so long. Despite the shock of being discovered, there had been something freeing about that moment, like taking a full breath after years of shallow breathing. Around lunchtime, a commotion near the door drew everyone's attention. A large family was entering, grandparents, parents, and a little girl wearing a sparkly dress and a paper crown. The adults were singing Happy Birthday somewhat awkwardly as they made their way to the largest table in the center of the diner. "Someone's turning 8 today," the grandmother announced proudly to the room at large. Several nearby customers smiled and offered birthday wishes to the little girl, who beamed with importance. Mr. Peterson immediately went into host mode, pulling out the chair for the birthday girl and promising a special dessert on the house. Lily and Nancy divided the large table between them, taking drink orders and bringing extra napkins. "What a pretty dress," Lily commented as she set a chocolate milk in front of the birthday girl. "Thank you." The child twirled to show off the full skirt. "My name is Zoe and I'm having my birthday lunch here because Grandma says they have the best pancakes. And then we're going to the park. And then I'm having a sleepover with my best friend Maya. Sounds like a perfect day." Lily smiled. There was something infectious about the child's excitement. "It almost is," Zoe said, suddenly serious. "But you know what would make it perfect? If someone could play the piano while we eat. I'm taking lessons, but I'm not very good yet." The adults at the table exchanged glances. "Honey, I don't think anyone here plays the piano," her mother said gently. "Actually," Mr. Peterson interjected, having overheard as he passed by, "we might be able to arrange something. Let me make a call." He disappeared into his office and Lily felt a flutter of panic. Surely he wasn't calling David. The thought of him returning and putting her on the spot was unbearable. But when Mr. Peterson returned, he was smiling broadly. "Good news. Mrs. Chen from the music school can come by in about 20 minutes. She'd be happy to play for the birthday girl." Zoe clapped her hands in delight, and Lily relaxed slightly. Mrs. Chen was a professional. Her playing would be far better than anything Lily could offer anyway. The family ordered their food, and Lily busied herself with other customers, trying not to think about the piano or Mrs. Chen, or the fact that part of her, a small but insistent part, was disappointed that she wouldn't be the one to play for Zoe's birthday. 20 minutes came and went, then 30. Mr. Peterson checked his phone several times, frowning at the screen. Finally it rang and he stepped outside to take the call. When he returned, his expression was apologetic. I'm sorry, but Mrs. Chen has had a minor accident. Slipped on some wet floor at the music school and sprained her wrist. Nothing serious, but she obviously can't play today. Zoe's face fell, her paper crown suddenly seeming to droop along with her spirits. Oh, she said in a small voice. That's okay. It's still a good birthday. The adults rushed to reassure her, promising extra ice cream and more presents, but the disappointment on the child's face was clear. Lily felt a pang as she delivered their food, watching the little girl pick at her special birthday pancakes without enthusiasm. The diner had grown busy, with the lunch rush in full swing. Nancy brushed past Lily on her way to the kitchen. Poor kid, she murmured. Wish someone could play something for her. Even Happy Birthday would do. Lily nodded, moving to take an order from a newly seated couple. But as she wrote down their selections, her eyes kept drifting to Zoe, then to the piano, then back again. What was she so afraid of? That people would know she could play? That she'd be reminded of what she'd lost? Or was it that she'd be reminded of what she'd loved? What had once defined her entire existence? 3 years of running from music. 3 years of pretending to be someone else. And for what? The pain was still there, buried but not gone. The memories hadn't faded. All she'd done was add another layer of loss. The loss of something that had once brought her joy. Before she could talk herself out of it, Lily handed her notepad to Nancy. Can you cover for me? Just for a few minutes? Nancy looked surprised but nodded. Sure, honey. Everything okay? Lily didn't answer. Instead, she walked deliberately across the diner to Zoe's table. Excuse me, she said, her voice surprisingly steady. Would you still like some birthday music? Zoe's eyes widened. Yes. Do you know how to play? A little, Lily said with a small smile. Any requests? Can you play Happy Birthday? Zoe asked hopefully. I think I can manage that, Lily replied, heart pounding as she turned and walked to the piano. The diner hadn't fallen silent yet. Most people were engaged in their own conversations, enjoying their meals. But as Lily sat down at the bench and lifted the fallboard, she felt rather than saw heads beginning to turn. She positioned her hands over the keys, took a deep breath, and began to play. Not just a simple rendition of Happy Birthday, but a flowing, embellished version that sparkled like Zoe's dress, full of trills and runs that transformed the simple tune into something magical. As she played, conversations died away. Forks paused midway to mouths. Even the clattering from the kitchen ceased as Joe stepped out to listen. Lily kept her eyes on the keys, too nervous to look up, but she could feel the attention of the entire diner focused on her. When she finished Happy Birthday, she transitioned smoothly into Debussy's children's Corner Suite, a playful piece that seemed perfect for a child's celebration. Her fingers remembered every note, every nuance, moving across the keys with the confidence of thousands of hours of practice. The music filled the diner, transforming the ordinary lunch into something extraordinary. When she finally ended with a gentle flourish and looked up, the silence was absolute. Then Zoe broke it with enthusiastic applause, jumping up from her chair. That was amazing. You play better than my teacher. The rest of the diner joined in the applause, faces showing surprise and delight. Mr. Peterson stood with his mouth slightly open, as if seeing Lily for the first time. Nancy had tears in her eyes, and Joe was grinning broadly from the kitchen doorway. I didn't know you could play like that, Mr. Peterson said as Lily rose from the bench, her face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and exhilaration. I'm a bit out of practice, she said softly, which was both true and the understatement of the year. Out of practice? Joe exclaimed. Girl, you play like you belong in one of them fancy concert halls. Zoe had come up beside Lily, looking at her with wide, adoring eyes. Can you teach me to play like that, please? Oh, I'm not a teacher, Lily began, but the child's mother interrupted. We'd pay you, of course. Zoe's current teacher is, well, let's just say she doesn't inspire this kind of enthusiasm. Before Lily could respond, the bell above the door jingled and David walked in. He stopped just inside the entrance, taking in the scene. Lily standing by the piano, the applauding customers, the birthday girl looking up at Lily like she'd hung the moon. Did I miss something? He asked, but the smile on his face suggested he already knew. Mr. Peterson clapped his hands together. Lily just gave us the performance of a lifetime. Why didn't you tell me we had a concert pianist waiting tables? All eyes turned to Lily, who felt her face grow even warmer. I'm not... I mean, I was never— She's being modest, David said, stepping forward. I'd bet my violin she studied at one of the top conservatories in the country. The questions came then, from all directions. How long had she played? Where had she studied? Why was she working in a diner? Lily felt overwhelmed, unprepared for the sudden interest in the past she'd been hiding for so long. Please, she said finally, raising her hands. I have tables to serve. The birthday girl is waiting for her special dessert. Can we talk about this later? The customers reluctantly returned to their meals, though many continued to glance at her with newfound interest. Zoe gave her a quick hug before returning to her family, chattering excitedly about her private concert. As Lily moved to continue her work, David caught her eye from across the room and gave her a small thumbs up. And despite her racing heart and the uncertainty of what would come next, Lily found herself smiling back. The secret was out. And somehow the world hadn't ended. Word spread quickly through the small town. By the evening shift, Melody's diner was packed with people who had heard about the waitress who played piano like a professional. They ordered coffee and pie, lingering over their desserts with hopeful expressions, but Lily kept to her routine, taking orders and refilling drinks as if nothing had changed. They're here to see you play, Nancy whispered as they passed each other by the coffee station. Mr. Peterson would probably give you a raise if you'd perform regularly. Lily shook her head. I'm not ready for that. The truth was she felt raw, exposed. Playing for Zoe's birthday had been an impulsive decision, a moment of connection that broke through 3 years of carefully maintained barriers. But the thought of performing on command, of becoming an attraction, made her feel like she was back in the spotlight she had fled. As closing time approached, the crowd thinned out, leaving just a few die-hard hopefuls nursing cold cups of coffee. Mr. Peterson finally shooed them away with promises that Lily might play again sometime soon, though he hadn't actually confirmed this with her. I'm sorry about that, he said when they were gone, looking genuinely apologetic. I got carried away with the excitement. You don't have to play if you don't want to. Lily nodded gratefully. Thank you. It's complicated. Life usually is, Mr. Peterson replied with unexpected wisdom. But whatever happened in your past, you've got a gift. Be ashamed to keep it locked away forever. After closing, Lily walked home through the quiet streets, her mind swirling with conflicting emotions. The piano had felt so right under her fingers, like reconnecting with a piece of herself that had been missing, yet the old fears lingered. The pressure, the expectations, the reason she had walked away. When she reached her apartment, she was surprised to find a small package leaning against her door. Inside was a blank music notebook and a card with a simple message. For when you're ready. No pressure. David. Lily traced her fingers over the empty staves of the notebook. It had been years since she'd written music, though she'd once been told she had a talent for composition. Another path not taken, another part of herself she'd locked away. She slept fitfully that night, dreams filled with music and memories. In the morning, she woke early and, for the first time in 3 years, did the finger exercises that had once been as routine as brushing her teeth. Her hands were stiffer than they used to be, the muscles less responsive. But the familiar patterns came back quickly. At the diner, she was relieved to find it was a normal breakfast crowd, regulars who either hadn't heard about her playing or were kind enough not to mention it. But as the morning progressed, more unfamiliar faces appeared, ordering minimal food and watching her expectantly. During a lull, David came in, this time without his violin. He took a seat at the counter and waited until Lily approached before speaking. I wanted to apologize if I made things difficult for you yesterday, he said, his expression sincere. I was excited to discover another serious musician in town, but I should have been more considerate of your privacy. It's okay, Lily said, finding that she meant it. It would have come out eventually, I guess. Small towns and secrets don't mix well. David smiled. True, so. Will you come to our opening on Saturday? No expectations, just as a guest. Though Mrs. Chen is very curious about you now. Lily hesitated, then nodded. I might. If I'm not working, great. David looked genuinely pleased. And speaking of Mrs. Chen, her wrist is actually pretty badly sprained. Doctor says no piano for at least 3 weeks. We're in a bit of a bind because she was supposed to teach the beginner piano classes. Lily immediately saw where this was heading. I'm not a teacher, David. But you could be, he said earnestly. Just temporarily until Mrs. Chen recovers. 3 beginner classes, mostly kids, twice a week. We'd pay you, of course." Before Lily could respond, the bell above the door jingled and Zoe burst in with her mother close behind. The little girl's face lit up when she spotted Lily. "There she is," she exclaimed, rushing over. "Mom, that's the piano lady I told you about." Lily couldn't help smiling at the child's enthusiasm. "Hello again, Zoe, enjoying being 8? It's the best. And guess what? Mom signed me up for the music school, and I was supposed to have Mrs. Chen as my teacher, but now she hurt her hand." And Zoe looked at David, then back at Lily, connecting the dots with a child's directness. "Are you going to be my teacher now? Please say yes." Caught between Zoe's hopeful expression and David's encouraging smile, Lily felt her reservations wavering. I'll think about it," she promised. Throughout the day, more people approached her. Parents who wanted lessons for their children, elderly folks who just wanted to express their appreciation for her music, even the high school music teacher who asked if she'd consider helping with their spring concert. By the end of her shift, Lily felt overwhelmed but also strangely energized. For 3 years, she'd been hiding a fundamental part of who she was. Now that it was out in the open, she felt lighter somehow, as if she'd been carrying a heavy weight she hadn't fully acknowledged. That evening, Mr. Peterson called a staff meeting after closing. Joe, Nancy, Priya, and Lily gathered around a table, curious about the unusual summons. "I've been thinking," Mr. Peterson began, rubbing his hands together nervously. "Business has been good, but it could be better. We've got this piano now, at least temporarily. And we've also got," he gestured to Lily, "an incredibly talented pianist on staff." Lily tensed, already guessing what was coming. "What would you all think about having music nights? Maybe twice a week to start? We could stay open a little later, serve desserts and coffee, make it an event." Mr. Peterson looked around at their faces, gauging reactions. Lily would get a bonus for playing, of course, and the rest of you would get extra hours if you wanted them. "I think it's a fantastic idea," Nancy said immediately. "This town could use some culture." Joe nodded. "My sister in the city pays good money to eat at places with live music. We'd be bringing that experience here. It would certainly make us stand out," Priya added. "No other restaurant in town has anything like it." All eyes turned to Lily, who felt a familiar panic rising. "I don't know if I can do that," she said quietly. "Performing regularly again? It's a lot to ask." Mr. Peterson leaned forward. "What if we start small? 1 night a week, just an hour. No pressure, no grand announcements. If it doesn't work out, we stop. Simple as that." Lily looked around at their expectant faces. These people had become her family over the past 3 years. They'd never pushed her, never pried into her past, just accepted her as she was. Now they were asking her to share her gift. Not on the prestigious stages she'd once dreamed of, but in this humble diner that had become her refuge. "Can I think about it?" she asked finally. "Of course," Mr. Peterson assured her. "Take all the time you need." That night, sitting in her small apartment, Lily opened the music notebook David had given her. For the first time in years, she began to write. Not the complex classical compositions she'd once studied, but something simpler, gentler, inspired by the quiet life she'd built here and the unexpected turn it had taken. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. Lily wasn't scheduled to work, so she slept later than usual, then spent time practicing on her table, her fingers growing more confident with each passing day. In the afternoon, she stood in front of her closet considering what to wear to the music school opening. Nothing too formal, David had said, but she wanted to look nice. She finally settled on a simple blue dress she rarely had occasion to wear, a reminder of her previous life. The music school was housed in a renovated storefront just 2 blocks from the diner. As Lily approached, she could hear the sounds of a string quartet playing inside. Her steps slowed, old anxieties surfacing, but she forced herself to continue. David spotted her immediately when she entered, excusing himself from a conversation to greet her. "You came. I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I," Lily admitted with a small smile. He introduced her to the other teachers, a violinist, a cellist, and a guitarist, all of whom welcomed her warmly. Mrs. Chen was there too, her wrist in a brace, her eyes sharp with interest as she assessed Lily. "David tells me you studied at Juilliard," Mrs. Chen said without preamble. "Who was your teacher?" The direct question caught Lily off guard, but also loosened something inside her. For the first time in years, she spoke aloud the name that had once meant everything to her. Professor Gregory Wilson. Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose in clear recognition. An excellent teacher. Very demanding. Yes, Lily agreed. He was. As they talked, Lily found herself sharing more about her training, her competitions, the path that had once seemed so clear before life intervened. It felt strange but oddly freeing to acknowledge that part of her history again. The small gathering was lively, with many of the same townspeople who had come to the diner hoping to hear Lily play. Zoe was there with her parents, proudly showing Lily the music book she'd just received. Near the end of the evening, Mrs. Chen approached Lily again. "We have a tradition at openings," she explained. "Each teacher plays a short piece to demonstrate their instrument. Would you consider representing piano for me since I cannot play?" The room quieted as people overheard the request. Lily felt all eyes turned to her, but this time, the attention didn't fill her with dread. Instead, she felt a calm certainty as she nodded and moved to the grand piano that dominated the main room. As she sat at the bench, adjusting her posture and placing her hands on the keys, Lily thought about the journey that had brought her here, the years of dedicated practice, the pressure that had nearly broken her, the quiet healing of the past 3 years, and now this new beginning. She began to play the piece she'd started writing in her notebook, a simple, heartfelt melody that spoke of loss and rediscovery, of hiding and being found. It wasn't technically complex like the classical pieces she'd once performed, but it was honest in a way her playing had never been before. When she finished, the applause was warm and genuine. Looking up, Lily saw David smiling with pride, Mrs. Chen nodding with approval, and Zoe watching with wide-eyed wonder. But most surprisingly, she saw Mr. Peterson standing near the back, his eyes suspiciously moist. After the crowd dispersed, he approached her. "That was beautiful, Lily. Different from what you played at the diner, but just as special. Thank you for coming," she said. Touched by his support, "I wouldn't have missed it." He hesitated, then added, "Have you thought about my offer?" The music nights. Lily looked around at the music school, at the community that had welcomed both the waitress and the pianist she truly was. For 3 years she had been running from music, convinced that stepping away from the prestigious path she'd been on meant abandoning it entirely, but perhaps there was a middle way, a way to honor her gift without being consumed by it. "Yes," she said finally. "I'll do it. 1 night a week to start," Mr. Peterson beamed. "Wednesday night, then. I'll put up signs tomorrow." As they walked back toward the diner together, Lily felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. The piano that had unexpectedly entered her life had done more than just reveal her secret. It had helped her find a balance she hadn't known was possible. She would still be Lily the waitress, serving coffee and memorizing orders, but now she would also be Lily the pianist, sharing the music that had always been part of her soul. And somehow, in this small town she'd chosen as her hiding place, she had found a way to be whole again.